Thinking, Fast and Slow, by Daniel Kahneman is a book that explores the two systems of thinking that humans use, System 1 and System 2. Chapter 1, The Characters of the Story, introduces System 1 and System 2 and their roles in decision-making. System 1 is automatic, intuitive, and quick, while System 2 is deliberate, effortful, and slow. Chapter 2, Attention and Effort, explores the limited capacity of System 2 and how it requires effort to focus attention and override the intuitive responses of System 1. Chapter 3, The Lazy Controller, discusses the preference for mental laziness and the tendency to rely on System 1, which can lead to biases and errors in judgment. Chapter 4, The Associative Machine, examines the associative nature of System 1, which often leads to biases and snap judgments based on past experiences and stereotypes. Chapter 5, Cognitive Ease, explores the concept of cognitive ease and how it influences decision-making, as well as the impact of familiarity and fluency on our perceptions. Chapter 6, Norms, Surprises, and Causes, discusses the reliance on norms and expectations when making judgments, as well as the role of surprises and causal explanations in shaping our beliefs. Chapter 7, A Machine for Jumping to Conclusions, explores the tendency to form quick judgments and make inferences based on limited information, leading to biases and errors. Chapter 8, How Judgments Happen, discusses the process of forming judgments and the role of heuristics, mental shortcuts, and biases in decision-making. Chapter 9, Answering an Easier Question, examines the tendency to substitute complex questions with simpler ones that are easier to answer, leading to biases and errors. Chapter 10, The Law of Small Numbers, discusses the limitations of intuition and the tendency to rely on small samples and anecdotal evidence, leading to biases and erroneous conclusions. Chapter 11, Anchors, explores the influence of initial anchors on subsequent judgments and decisions, as well as the susceptibility to anchoring effects. Chapter 12, The Science of Availability, discusses the availability heuristic and how the ease of recalling information influences our judgments and perceptions. Chapter 13, Availability, Emotion, and Risk, examines the impact of emotions on decision-making, the availability of emotionally charged events, and the role of risk perception. Chapter 14, Tom W.'s Specialty, discusses the illusion of validity and the limitations of expert intuition, as well as the challenges of predicting future outcomes. Chapter 15, Linda, Less is More, explores the conjunction fallacy and the misconception that more specific events are more probable, despite contradicting basic principles of probability. Chapter 16, Causes Trump Statistics, discusses the influence of causal explanations on our judgments and the tendency to neglect statistical information. Chapter 17, Regression to the Mean, examines the phenomenon of regression to the mean, where extreme events tend to be followed by less extreme events, and the implications for predictions and evaluations. Chapter 18, Taming Intuitive Predictions, explores strategies for improving intuitive predictions, such as using algorithms and statistical models, to overcome biases and improve accuracy. Chapter 19, The Illusion of Understanding, discusses the illusion of understanding complex systems and the challenges of predicting and explaining outcomes in uncertain environments. Chapter 20, The Illusion of Validity, examines the limitations of our ability to assess the validity and reliability of information, leading to overconfidence and erroneous judgments. Chapter 21, Intuitions versus Formulas, discusses the advantages of using algorithms and formulas over human intuition in decision-making, highlighting their greater accuracy and consistency. Chapter 22, Expert Intuition, When Can We Trust It?, examines the conditions under which expert intuition can be reliable, emphasizing the importance of feedback, practice, and structured environments. Chapter 23, The Outside View, discusses the benefits of adopting an outside view and considering base rates when making predictions and decisions, to avoid biases and improve accuracy. Chapter 24, The Engine of Capitalism, explores the role of decision-making biases in economic behavior and the challenges they pose to efficient markets and rational economic models. Chapter 25, Bernoulli's errors. Discusses the limitations of the expected utility theory and the challenges of accurately assessing probabilities and values in real-world decision-making. Chapter 26, Prospect Theory, introduces prospect theory, an alternative model of decision-making that accounts for cognitive biases and incorporates the concepts of loss aversion and reference points. Chapter 27, Further Challenges to Rationality, examines additional biases and phenomena that challenge the assumptions of rational decision-making, such as framing effects, the endowment effect, and the planning fallacy. Chapter 28, Rare Events, discusses the challenges of dealing with rare and extreme events, as well as the biases and errors that can occur when evaluating and responding to such events. Chapter 29, Risk Policies, explores the implications of different risk policies and attitudes towards risk, including the role of heuristics and biases in risk assessment and decision-making. Chapter 30, Keeping Score, discusses the importance of feedback in keeping score in decision-making, and the challenges of accurately evaluating outcomes and learning from experience. Chapter 31, Reversals, examines situations where people's preferences and decisions can be reversed depending on the framing or presentation of options, highlighting the influence of context and framing effects. Chapter 32, Frames in Reality, explores the impact of framing on our perceptions and decisions, and the challenges of distinguishing between objective reality and subjective interpretations. Chapter 33, The Illusion of Well-Being, discusses the limitations of our ability to accurately remember and evaluate past experiences, as well as the influence of peak moments and endings on our overall well-being. Chapter 34, Experiencing Self versus Remembering Self, examines the differences between the experiencing self and the remembering self, and the biases that can occur when evaluating and making decisions based on past experiences. Chapter 35, Two Selves, explores the concept of the dual system view of the self, incorporating both the experiencing self and the remembering self, and the implications for decision-making and well-being. Chapter 36, Life Stories, discusses the role of narratives and life stories in shaping our perceptions and understanding of our own lives, as well as the challenges of creating coherent and accurate narratives. Chapter 37, The Relevance of Kahneman and Tversky, reflects on the contributions of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky to the field of behavioral economics and the study of human decision-making. Chapter 38, The End, concludes the book by summarizing the key insights and lessons from Thinking, Fast and Slow, and encouraging readers to be aware of the biases and limitations of their own thinking processes. Additionally, Kahneman discusses the impact of emotions on decision-making, the role of intuition and expertise, and the challenges of predicting and evaluating probabilities. He provides insights into how biases can lead to errors in areas such as finance, medicine, and public policy. Ultimately, Thinking, Fast and Slow, is a thought-provoking book that sheds light on the complex workings of the human mind and the factors that influence our judgments and choices. It urges readers to be aware of the limitations of their thinking processes and offers valuable insights for making more rational and informed decisions.